think people really wanted to store CO2.
All right, so we are on the record for hearings and the matters listed on the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for Thursday, September 28th, 2023. I'm Matthew Sagsveen, hearing examiner for these hearings, and we're at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9:01 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed today. Case numbers 30397, 30400, 30246, 30152, and 30405. The administrative docket starts on page 5 with case number 30402 and goes through case number 30414. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the oil and gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. So today we're going to begin with case number 30296, which is a continued case for the proper spacing for the development of the Granora Bakken Pool in Williams County, North Dakota, seeking to redefine the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary for Coda Resources Operating LLC. Mr. Bender, I assume this is your case?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. Appearing in this matter, case number 30296, on behalf of CODA. And we intend to call 3 witnesses in this matter. They are all present with us in the hearing room. Our first witness will be in the area of land, Mr. Jason McLaren. Our second witness will be in the area of geology, Ms. Catherine Pfeiffer. And then our third witness will be an engineering witness, Mr. Jake Hervey. Before I call the first witness, excuse me, Mr. Examiner, I'd like to point out that there was a temporary spacing hearing in this area, Granora Bakken Pool, back in December of 2010, and the Commission did enter a order establishing temporary spacing. Don't know how much drilling, if any, took place during December of 2010 until CODA got interested in this area back in June of 2020. But CODA did come in June of 2020 and asked to reinstate the temporary spacing. So I suspect that the temporary spacing did expire. We requested the temporary spacing to be put back into place. And at that hearing, information was presented to establish some 1,280 acre spacing units. This case today was put on the docket by the Commission, and it gives Coda Resources Operating LLC an opportunity to talk a little bit about its plans for development in this area. And you're going to find that the first case on the docket, or excuse me, the second case on the docket, case 30391, is actually going to be the identical relief that we're going to suggest in terms of the proper spacing in case 30296. If I've confused everyone, I apologize, but I think as we walk through the exhibits, all will become a little bit more clear.
Okay, since your witnesses are all seated at the table, I think I'll swear them all at the same time. Could you all raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? All right, Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. Jason, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Jason McLaren.
And Jason, by whom are you employed?
Coda Resources.
In what capacity?
I'm the lane manager.
And can you maybe speak a little bit louder? And I don't think your mic is turned on. There you go.
There we go.
You think the tape got that? Do you think we have to start over? Okay, I apologize for that. Jason, state your full name for the record.
Jason McLaren,
And by whom are you employed?
Coda Resources,
What capacity?
land manager.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the Commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Your motion's granted.
Jason, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for case 30296. And let's start with the first page of that packet. It's been previously marked as Exhibit L1. Can you tell me what L1 is?
Sure, and if I may, I just want to say that the exhibits go in the order of the letter received by the commission requesting the specific information that we've provided, so. L1 is just a regional locator map showing we're in way western North Dakota on the Montana border and the outline of the Granora Bakken Pool.
Okay, and then L2.
L2 is just in a zoomed-in location map showing the specific sections and area of the Granora Bakken Pool, and have a layer of just the activity historically that's happened in this area.
Okay, and when CODA made a request a few years ago on reinstating the temporary spacing, it made a request for 1280s, is that correct? It made no request for 1920s.
Correct. So represented there are the 1280s that we requested on a previous hearing, and then in the subsequent case coming up are the two 1920s in red that we'll be discussing.
And can you explain, is there a preference by CODA for 1920s in this area? And if there is a preference, why is CODA only proposing two 1920s?
So in the past, we have discussed with the commission the energy corridor concept, and we've adopted that. And the 3-mile laterals are more efficient to adhere to those corridors and minimize surface disturbance. So we've moved to 3-mile laterals, and this is the southwestern edge of what we find to be prospective. As time has gone on, the 1280s that we've spaced previously aren't considered prospective at this time for us. So,
And if that interpretation should change, you would come back to the commission likely and continue with your 1920-acre spacing further to the west, is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay, let's go on then to the next exhibit. I might have an error in mine. I jumped to L4. Is that what?
L3 was a request for a lease expiration map.
Okay.
And we prepared something, but we propose not to have it put in the
Okay,
public record.
because there's some proprietary information on that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we will not have an exhibit L3. So let's go to L4.
L4 shows zoomed into the Granora field specifically to show that all of the wells on this layer are plugged and abandoned. None of them were ever Bakken wells, and there are no producing wells in the Granora Bakken pool, the Granora field currently.
Okay. So even though the commission has put on the docket a hearing for proper spacing, at the current time, there is no Bakken horizontal production. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go, well, I guess that's it for the land exhibits. Mr. Examiner, we don't have any further questions for this witness.
Any questions from staff?
Jason, if I understand your testimony correctly, you're just requesting two stand-up 1920s. The rest would be 1280s. Is that correct?
In the subsequent case, we are making that specific request, and we are just trying to address the questions presented to us to comply with requests from commission.
And
So,
go ahead.
so we just put the 1920s that we're requesting on this map as part of the activity that's within the field, just for your information, and we'll address those two 1920s up next.
And if I can add to that, Mr. Boer, obviously you put this case on the docket, but you being the commission, but at the same time, CODA had made application for case 30391, which basically requests what we're recommending the proper spacing to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess where I was ultimately going with this is that obviously up against the Montana border, we're running out of room for 1280s. So I assume those are probably stand-up 640s at one time. And I assume that if we decided to space them as stand-up 640s, CODA would have no objection to that.
I don't believe so, because as the witness just testified, Mr. McLaren, this is probably as far west as we're going to go with these 1920s. And if we were to go further west, we can always come back, and probably would come back and ask for 1920s or some other configuration that would fit with the Montana-North Dakota border.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, Thank you, sir. Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Catherine Pfeiffer,
Yes, sir.
has she been sworn?
Yep, I
Okay.
swore them all.
Okay, great. Would you state your name for the record?
Catherine Pfeiffer,
And Catherine, by whom are you employed?
Coda Resources,
In what capacity?
a geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion's granted.
Okay, Catherine, let's go to the next exhibit, and I'll slow down a little bit here. Let's go to G1. Can you tell me what G1 is?
Yes, G1 is a structure map in subsea TVD on the Middle Bakken member. The contour interval is 25 feet. You have the field outline of Granora, basically just showing that as you move to the southeast, you are getting deeper, and then it becomes shallower to the northwest. And then the cross-section will be on a exhibit in a few.
Okay, and
Slides.
G2?
This is a Middle Bakken isopack. The contour interval is 5 feet, and it's just showing the average in this field is about 45 feet thick.
And G3?
G3 is an Upper Three Forks isopack, also having a contour interval of 5 feet, and it's showing you're about 10 to 11 feet or so for thickness of the Three Forks.
And G4?
This is a cross-section, so you can see the 8A prime that we've been seeing on maps, just showing type logs in the area, and you're showing the lower portion of the lodgepole and then down to the bird bear.
And at the bottom of this cross-section, you have a definition of the pool, the Granora Bakken pool. Is that the same definition that the commission had established in the temporary order?
Correct.
Okay. No further questions of this witness?
Any questions from staff?
Catherine, on your exhibit G1, I guess it's just out on the edge, shows up better on L4. There's a development on the Montana side that we don't have data on. Are you familiar with that? Is it Bakken, Mission Canyon? What is that?
So on the, are you talking to the southwest?
No, I'm
Montana
talking
side?
to the northwest.
To the northwest, yes, it's Red River and Gunton. Yeah. Are you talking about to the northwest?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's Red River.
Red River.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Bender. You may call your next witness.
Jake, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Jake Hervey,
And Jake, by whom are you employed?
Coda Resources,
In what capacity?
reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion's granted.
Jake, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as E1. A lot of information on that exhibit. Can you briefly summarize what's contained on that exhibit and the importance for this hearing?
Yeah, so E1 is just a summary of the reservoir parameters for the Bakken pool in this area. As there's never been any Bakken development directly in this field, we've used an adjacent field as an analog. So we have fluid properties, gas, oil, water. In subsequent exhibits, there are actual analytical analysis for gas, oil, water. And then we also have our reservoir properties of the primary contributors, the Middle Bakken and the Upper Three Forks, and some volumetric estimates.
All right, and E2?
E2 just shows our kind of Middle Bakken 3-mile lateral, 1920 acre economics, showing reasonable payouts and rate of returns.
And then why don't you just quickly discuss E3, E4, and E5?
So E3, 4, and 5 are gas, oil, and water from adjacent producers from the next field over.
Okay. And in your opinion, will the proposed spacing pattern or proper spacing that Jason pointed out in his testimony, in your view, will that prevent waste, protect relative rights, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
And in terms of how these wells will be drilled, you heard me mention that we're going to have a companion case, which has been docketed as 30391. We're going to present some more information with respect to how the wells will be drilled, et cetera. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have for these three witnesses in this case. We would offer the exhibits.
What was the last exhibit you were offering?
Last exhibit
Would be
is,
E5,
yeah,
the water analysis.
Okay.
oh, you weren't supposed to have that. Are you the only one who has that? Oh, my secretary messed up, so can I have those back? I apologize, Jason, but as long as you don't get made a part of the record, we should be okay.
Do you just want me to shred the ones in there then, or do
Why
you
don't
want?
you just give them to me? No, I think you can have that. It's just,
No, this is L3.
That's L3,
That's L3.
that they decided not to.
you just didn't
introduce.
give me the confidential cover page.
I assume we can have this one.
Smart guy. Let me take the confidential stuff off, then I'll give it to you afterwards.
All right, thank you. The exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Lawrence, I think this is actually a question for you. The packet I have doesn't have a gas capture exhibit, is that?
Didn't present a gas capture
Okay.
exhibit because there is, I mean, at this point in time, there's no
That's in
production.
plan? Okay,
Yep.
There's
Thank you.
gas capture in the next case.
okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, this may be for Lawrence also, but obviously Coda witnesses can chime in. Since we've never had production in the pool, one of the outcomes could be that we just reinstate temporary spacing. The temporary spacing actually expired on June 30th. But if that's what the commission decides to do you have any objection to that?
No, we don't have any objection to this. I'll frankly indicate that I'm a little confused by the fact that this was really even on the docket. I mean, it seems to me that it would have been more appropriate, and I'm not trying to quarrel with the commission, but it may have been more appropriate for us to go forward with the next case, 30391, get two 1,920 acre drilling units established, the wells get drilled, and then it gets called back either for temporary spacing or proper spacing. But we don't have any objection, whatever the commission deems to be appropriate for this. You know more about how you want your records kept in terms of temporary spacing or proper spacing than the applicant does.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Jake, you indicated that the fluid analysis is from the adjacent field, but there's no field name listed on there. Is this Hanks? I saw a Christensen well over in the Hanks field. Is it the field to
That's
the
correct,
east?
yes, it's from the Hanks Field. So if you look at,
Oh, maybe one of them does.
if you go to L4, you can see the Christensen well that we're providing a gas analysis from, two sections, basically 1.5 miles to the east of the Granora Bakken field.
Thanks.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, okay. Anything further on case number 30296, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
All right, we will close the record on case number 30296. And now we will move on to case number 30391. This is an application of Coda Resources Operating LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Granora Bakken Pool in Williams County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish the two 1920 acre spacing units comprised of sections 1, 12, and 13, and sections 24, 25, and 36, Township 159 North, Range 103 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on each proposed 1920 acre spacing unit and/or such further relief. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter, case 30391, on behalf of Coda Resources Operating LLC. We're going to have the same three witnesses in this case as we had in the previous case, And it is, as I indicated in the previous case, there's a lot of things that'll be presented in this case that are similar or identical to what was presented in case 30296. So at this time, we'd respectfully request that the record from case 30296 be incorporated into this matter, 30391. And I think we could save some time in the presentation by taking that approach.
All right, the record and for case number 30296 will be reflected a reference in case number 30391. Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness. And before you do so, you see you have the same witnesses, so I'll just remind you, you continue to be under oath. And Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
Okay, Jason, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for case 30391. And I've checked, no confidential information that we have to take out. But let's go to exhibit L1. Tell me what exhibit L1 is.
So it's just showing the area of interest for the two proposed drilling and spacing units. We are quite literally just south of the Divide County line in Williams County.
Okay.
And they're indicated there on the map.
And it's identical to the exhibit in the previous case, is that correct?
It is.
Let's go to L2, and if it's identical, no need to go into a great amount of detail, maybe just highlight what's on it.
Yep, just showing the two proposed drilling units.
Okay, and then exhibit L3.
L3 is a zoomed-in depiction of one of the two drilling units. The purpose to show that our current working interest in the proposed unit is 67%.
And then L4.
Similar slide for the second proposed unit, showing our current working interest in the drilling and spacing unit, 77%.
No further questions of the land witness.
Staff have any questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Catherine, let's go to G1.
Yes, so this is a Middle Bakken structure map on subsea TVD, and the contour interval is 25 feet. You're getting deeper to the southeast and shallower to the northwest.
Okay, and G2.
That's going to be a cross-section from 8A prime type log from the lower lodgepole down to the bird bear.
Is that the same cross-section as you presented in the previous case?
It actually does exclude a couple wells, so it's a smaller cross-section.
Right. No further questions of this witness.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you can call your next witness.
Sure. Jake, E1.
E1 shows the 5 proposed Middle Bakken wells spacing and the direction of the wells going to the north in the first proposed 1920 spacing unit.
Okay. And at this point, these are tentative locations. You haven't determined a surface location or a
Correct.
bottom hole location, is that correct? Okay. Let's go to E2.
E2 shows the second spacing unit and the 5 proposed Middle Bakken wells.
Okay, once again, just tentative locations. All right, let's go to E3.
E3 shows kind of an abbreviated version of fluid and reservoir properties and volumetric estimates for the 5 proposed potential wells, showing a recovery factor of roughly 16.5%.
And E4.
E4 shows the economics of the potential Bakken wells, showing reasonable payout and rate of return.
And then let's go to E5.
E5 is our kind of standard Middle Bakken type well diagram, showing our 15,000-foot lateral, our 7-inch intermediate casing with 4.5-inch tieback, and our roughly 100 planned plug and perf stages.
And then the next exhibit, E6, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of hearings?
Correct.
Okay. And in your opinion, if the requested relief is granted, will it prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions, offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Jake, what's your idealized interlateral distance in this area?
So roughly 1,000 feet.
And would CODA attempt to drill all 10 of these wells from a single pad?
We would attempt to. It'll depend on kind of surface constraints and then drilling kickouts and tangent angles.
If you could get one pad, do you think you can drill all 10 from one?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Jake, are the laterals gonna target Middle Bakken or Three Forks?
So our current plan would be to drill Middle Bakken laterals. The Three Forks as kind of a secondary target.
And how did you arrive at the 1,000-foot interwell distance?
Based on analog results in northern Williams County, based on other operators.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing no additional questions, Mr. Bender, anything further on case number 30391?
Nothing further in that case.
All right, we'll close the record on case number 30391. Next case on the docket is case number 30392. This is an application of Akota Resources Operating LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Hanks Bakken Pool in Williams County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish the following. 3 1920 acre spacing units comprised of sections 6, 7, and 18, sections 19, 30, and 31, and sections 21, 28, and 33 in Township 159 North, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on each proposed 1920 acre spacing unit, and 3 overlapping 1920 acre spacing units comprised of sections 4, 9, and 16, and sections 5, 8, and 17, and sections 20, 29, and 32 in Township 159 North, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on each proposed overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit, and/or such further relief. Mr. Bender, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, and I'm appearing in case 30392 on behalf of Coda Resources Operating LLC. Coda will be calling the same 3 witnesses in this case as it called in the previous 2 cases.
All right, the witnesses have been previously sworn, so Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. Jason, L1.
L1 is a regional locator map. We're in the same area as previous. We are in northern Williams County, just south of the Divide County line. Indicated on the map, we are now in Hanksfield.
L2.
L2 is a zoomed-in depiction of the 6 proposed drilling and spacing units. I'll note just for the record that we are just immediately adjacent to the 2 units we discussed previously.
Okay, but we're in a different field.
Different
is that
field, correct.
And L3.
We'll get into the individual units here depicting specifically the working interest in each. This particular drilling and spacing unit is at 83% working interest.
L4.
Moving over to sections 19, 30, and 31, where our current working interest is 60%.
And L5.
Continuing over to sections 21, 28, and 33, and our current working interest is 91%.
And L6.
L6 will be the first one that there is an existing 1280. We operate that well, and it's at 100% working interest, and the proposed overlapping 1920 at an 82% working interest.
And L7.
Also showing the currently existing and operated wells by Coda and their working interests at 63.75 and 99.84%, and the proposed 1920 where our working interest is 77%.
And then the final land exhibit, Exhibit L8.
All right, the proposed 1920 is sections 20, 29, and 32. Again, there's existing production that Coda operates. The northern well at 99.84% working interest and 100% in the southern well. And the total working interest for the proposed 1920 is 99%.
No further questions for the land witness.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Catherine, let's turn to Exhibit G1.
Yes, so G1 is a Middle Bakken structure map in subsea TVD. The contour interval is 25 feet, and the cross-section will be shown on the next exhibit, 8A prime.
G2.
This is a cross-section, just a type log showing from the lower lodge bowl down to the bird bear, and we'll be targeting the Middle Bakken member.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Okay. Jake, let's go to E1. Can you identify that exhibit and briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
E1 shows the first proposed 1920 spacing units with 5 potential Middle Bakken wells being drilled.
E2?
E2 shows the second proposed spacing unit with the 5 potential Middle Bakken wells.
E3?
E3 is our third spacing unit with 5 proposed Middle Bakken wells.
And E4?
E4 is our fourth proposed unit showing an existing 1280 producer and the 4 additional proposed Middle Bakken wells.
And E5?
E5 is the fifth proposed spacing unit showing 2 currently producing 10,000-foot laterals and the 4 additional proposed 3-mile laterals.
And E6?
E6 is the sixth proposed unit showing the existing producers and the 4 additional Middle Bakken wells.
And with respect to each one of these exhibits where you've showed proposed wells, those are tentative locations at this point in
Correct.
time and could change before you actually drill the wells. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the next exhibit then, Jake, E7. Tell us what E7 is.
E7 is our fluid and reservoir property estimates for this area, and then shows our total volumetrics and roughly 16.5% expected recovery factor with this development.
And E8?
E8 shows our Middle Bakken well 3-mile lateral economics, showing reasonable rate of return and payout.
Okay. Internal rate of return of 45%, is that correct?
That's correct.
Payout at about 14 months, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's go on to the next exhibit then, E9.
E9 shows our typical Middle Bakken wellbore diagram with our 7-inch intermediate string, 4.5-inch tieback liner, and then our roughly 100 planned plug-and perf stages.
Okay, similar as the previous case, is that
Correct.
correct? And then finally, Exhibit E10 is as a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of cases?
Yes.
And in your opinion, will the requested relief, if granted, prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions, offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Jake, do you plan on setting energy corridors in this area?
Yes. So the planned surface locations would be in the middle of these 6 spacing units, so going across the middle of the township.
Okay, so we might have to submit supplements then. So if you look at E4 and E5, that shows drilling from the north going down on 5. Can't read the numbers in the middle. But the
Oh, we got the wrong direction?
yep
Yeah, I
on
can fix that.
E4
Yep.
and E5.
Yeah, I'll adjust that.
Okay, so you just want to adjust those and
Correct.
supplement, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jared, I didn't get which exhibits did you need supplementals on?
E4 and E5.
Okay.
The arrows need to be flip flopped, so it's
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Yeah, I'll add, these are tentative, so it does depend on where we can get surface access.
Jake, in this area, I assume your inner well distance is still approximately 1,000,
That's correct.
and you're gonna try to drill from the common boundary and drill north and south?
Where we can, so that we can, basically, our general plan is set up all our pads with 2 rows of wells, so that we can reoccupy the locations and put a rig there multiple times to drill north and south.
Okay, thank you. And I assume your target is the Middle Bakken?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Jake, this area has a high water-oil ratio. What are your plans for handling and disposing of the produced water?
So we typically drill an on-pad SWD. That's been our historical way of handling it. And that goes into the more wells that we can drill from one pad, we can service with smaller amounts of SWD wells.
So no gathering system or anything like that?
There's
Just
potential
all
for a
on pad?
gathering system, but kind of initial delineation, we do the on-pad SWDs. And then when we come back for development, it just depends on right-of-ways and other considerations.
And do you use produced water for hydraulic fracturing?
We use a portion of a portion of it. The high TDS makes it difficult to use a really high percentage of it.
But you do use a percentage produced water?
Correct.
Thanks.
So from what you're stating, Jake, you don't plan on batch drilling all of the wells in each spacing unit? You plan on drilling 1 or 2 to start and coming back?
So in this area, So in this area, it would depend upon kind of delineation outcomes.
So would you start with a well in each spacing unit then and check numbers from there, or one?
Ideally, you could drill one set of delineation wells and then come in to do more full development.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing none. Mr. Bender, anything else on case number 30392?
Nothing further. Oh, yeah, wait, give us 10 days. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I should always, I can take a quick look.
Yeah, we can keep the record open for another 10 days on case number 30392.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hearing nothing further on case number 30392, we will close the hearing record for that case for today. And next on the docket is case number 30393. This is an application of Coda Resources Operating LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Bar Butte Bakken Pool in Williams County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish the following. One 19-20 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 22, 27, and 34 in Township 159 North, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on said proposed 19-20 acre spacing unit, and 3 overlapping 19-20 acre spacing units comprised of sections 2, 11, and 14, sections 3, 10, and 15, and sections 23, 26, and 35 in Township 159 North, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a total of not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on each proposed overlapping 19-20 acre spacing unit and/or such further relief. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this matter, case number 30393, on behalf of Coda Resources Operating LLC. We'll be calling 3 witnesses, the same 3 witnesses as were called in the previous case.
All right, and the record reflects that the witness has been sworn. So, Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. Jason, let's turn to the exhibits for 30393, L1.
L1 is just a regional map showing the location of the 4 proposed drilling units in northern Williams County. Oh, no, we're in the Bar Butte field now.
Okay, L2.
L2 shows the green outline of the Bar Butte field and the 4 proposed 19-20 drilling and spacing units. And I'll just note we're carrying on the same proposed energy corridor heading east now.
And L3.
L3 shows sections 22, 27, and 34, and Coda's current working interest at 89%.
L4.
L4 is sections 2, 11, and 14. I'll point out there's an existing operated well by Coda on the southern portion of this proposed DSU. Our working interest in that well is 98.61%, and the current working interest in the proposed new 19-20 spacing unit is 87%.
And L5.
L5 also contains an existing 1,280 acre spaced and operated well by Coda, where our working interest is 95.14%, and our working interest in the overlapping proposed 19-20 is 74%.
And L6.
2 existing wells in this unit. Portion of the northern well Coda operates at 98.61%, and the southern 1280 is at 92.78%, also operated by Coda. And then our combined working interest in the proposed 19-20 is 86%.
No questions for the land witness.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. Catherine, G1.
G1 is going to be a middle Bakken structure map and subsea TVD. The contour interval is 25 feet, and you can have the field outline of Bar Butte on there as well as our proposed spacing, and then the cross-section will be on the next exhibit.
Okay, let's go to the cross-section, G2.
So this is just a type log cross-section showing from the lower portion of the lodgepole down to the bird bear, and we'll be targeting the middle Bakken member.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Okay, Jake, let's go to E1, and as you've previously done, identify and briefly discuss.
So E1 shows the first proposed 1920 spacing unit with the 5 potential middle Bakken wells at roughly 1,000-foot interwell distance.
E2,
E2 shows our second spacing unit at 1920 acres, showing 1 existing producer and then the 4 additional proposed middle Bakken wells.
and E3.
E3 shows the third proposed 1920 spacing unit with our existing 1280 producer within and the additional 4 proposed middle Bakken wells.
And E4.
E4 shows the fourth spacing unit with the existing 2 Bakken producers and the additional 4 proposed Bakken producers.
And E5.
E5 shows our reservoir and fluid properties for the area, and then showing our estimated ultimate recovery factor of roughly 15.9% in this area.
And E6.
E6 shows our typical middle Bakken economics for our 3-mile laterals, showing roughly a 45% IRR and 14-month payout.
Okay, same as the previous
That's
case.
correct.
Okay. And then E7.
E7 is our typical middle Bakken type well diagram, same as we've been seeing, showing our 15,000-foot lateral and roughly 100 planned plug and perf stages.
And then E8 is a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters.
Correct.
And in your opinion, if the requested relief is granted, will it prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions. Offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff? All right. Hearing no questions from staff, anything further in case number 30393, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Close the record in case number 30393. Next case on the docket is case number 30394. This is an application of Coda Resources Operating LLC for an order for the Fertile Valley Bakken Pool in Divide County, North Dakota, to create and establish 2 overlapping 3840 acre spacing units comprised of sections 2, 3, 10, 11, 14, and 15, and sections 22, 23, 26, 27, 34, and 35 in Township 160, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of each proposed overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit and such other relief as appropriate. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, appearing this matter on behalf of Coda Resources Operating LLC. We planned on calling the same 3 witnesses in this matter as we called in the previous matters.
All right, the record will reflect that the witnesses have previously been sworn, so Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. Jason, L1.
L1 is just showing regionally. L1 is the regional locator map showing the area where the proposed drilling units are. We are now in Divide County, just north of the Williams County line, and I'm in Fertile Valley field.
Okay, and L2.
L2 is a zoomed-in depiction of the proposed 3840 acre spacing units.
Okay, and L3.
L3 shows the first proposed unit comprising sections 2, 3, 10, 11, 14, and 15. There are 2 existing producing wells operated by Coda. One is at a 96.8% working interest, and the other one is at 100% working interest. Additionally, on this map, in addition to depicting the red line that shows the proposed spacing unit, we have in green the other existing 1,280 acre spacing units, and listed at the bottom are the cases and orders referencing those. And additionally, we have 2 1,920 acre spacing units depicted in blue, and at the bottom there are the order and case numbers where those were established. And our total working interest for the proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit is 81%.
Okay, and L4.
Similar map for the additional proposed spacing unit. There's 1 partial lateral in there that Coda operates at 100%, and we show the existing 1920 acre spacing units in blue and the proposed 3840 acre spacing unit in red.
Okay, and while
Oh,
you're
and our
on-
working interest is 70%, sorry.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Didn't mean to interrupt you. And the engineering witness is going to talk a little bit more about the drilling of the section line wells as well as the other development in the 1920s. Is that correct?
Correct.
No further questions of the land witness.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Any questions from staff?
I just have one, Jason. I'm curious, for example, on Exhibit L3, in that southern well, you show you have 100% working interest, but there's white acreage. Is that non-consent acreage?
It is, correct. We specify we put before payout, so because of pooling with the commission before payout, we calculated 100% until after payout.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Catherine, let's turn to Exhibit G1.
Yes, so G1 is a Middle Bakken structure map and subsea TVD. The contour interval is 25 feet, and the cross-section will be shown on the next exhibit from A to A prime.
All right, G2.
This is a cross-section just showing the type log from the lower portion of the lodgepole down to the bird bear, and we'll be targeting the Middle Bakken member.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Okay, Jake, let's go to Exhibit E1.
E1 shows the proposed 3840 spacing unit with our current 2 producers, the 4 existing, or I guess the 4 currently spaced Middle Bakken wells in 3, 10, and 15 as a 1920, the 5 currently spaced Middle Bakken producers in 2, 11, and 14 as a 1920, and then the potential additional line well in the 3840 spacing unit.
And when you refer to these wells in 3, 10, and 15, and 2, 11, and 14 as space, they haven't been drilled yet, have they?
They have not been drilled.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit, E2.
E2 is a very similar exhibit showing the second proposed 3840, the current producers, the currently spaced but undrilled wells, and then our proposed additional line well.
And is the plan in both situations, in both of these 3840s, to batch drill some of these wells in conjunction with the section line well?
That's correct.
Let's go to E3. Tell us what E3 is.
E3 shows our reservoir parameters and fluid properties, and then our expected ultimate recovery factor for the area.
And E4?
E4 shows our typical Middle Bakken well economics, showing reasonable rate of return and payout at 45% and 14 months.
And E5?
E5 shows our typical Middle Bakken type well diagram, showing our 15,000-foot lateral and about 100 planned plug and perf stages.
And E6, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of hearings?
Yes.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions, Mr. Examiner. Offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Jake, is CODA familiar with the commission's policy of requiring wells in the open, undrilled space units to be completed at about the same time as the lease line well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing no additional questions, we will close the record for case number 30394. Next case on the docket is case number 30395. This is an application of EOG Resources Incorporated for an order amending the field rules for the Spotted Horn Bakken Pool in McKenzie County, North Dakota, so to create and establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 16, 17, 20, and 21 Township 150 North, Range 94 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of said proposed overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit and such further relief as appropriate. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. And appearing in this matter on behalf of EOG Resources, Inc., we intend to call two witnesses in this matter. Ms. Anna Morgan will be offering some land testimony, and Mr. John Schmidt will be offering some geologic and engineering testimony. Both witnesses should be on the phone. Anna, are you there? Pardon me, having a little trouble hearing you.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I just really still not that good. Are you on a speaker or?
We are. Well, we're in the conference room. We can call you back. We can recall on a different line.
No, it's now all of a sudden it's just fine. So I don't know what was going on initially, but it's just fine.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Bender, you may call your first witness.
First witness is Ms. Anna Morgan.
Ma'am, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Bender, you may proceed.
Thank you. Anna, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Anna Morgan,
And Anna, by whom are you employed?
EOG Resources,
In what capacity?
a land advisor.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously? And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
No, for the further testimony, this witness that of an expert.
Your motion is approved.
Okay. Anna, let's turn to the packet of exhibits first for case number 30395. I assume you have in front of you a packet of exhibits for that case?
Yes.
Let's turn first to what's been marked as Exhibit L1. Tell me what Exhibit L1 is.
Exhibit L1 is a regional location map showing where the boundary is for the spotted horn bucket pool within North Dakota.
Okay, and then let's go to L2.
L2 depicts the outline of the spotted horn bucket pool in the green outline with our proposed 2560 acre spacing unit outlined in red.
And Exhibit L3.
L3 is a zoomed in picture of the proposed spacing unit showing EOG's development and showing that EOG's working interest within the spacing unit is 80.25%.
And then L4.
Shows all of the existing development in the spacing unit proposed and the main spacing units, as well as underlying spacing units that intersect with our proposed spacing unit.
That's all the questions I have for this witness.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. John, would you state your full name for the record, please?
John Michael Schmidt.
Mr. Schmidt, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
All right, you may proceed.
John, by whom are you employed?
EOG Resources
In what capacity?
as a senior geological engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Offer the further testimony, this witness that of an expert.
Motion is granted.
John, let's turn to G1. Please identify G1 and briefly describe what's contained upon that exhibit.
Okay, G1 shows Middle Bakken Reservoir structure map
showing the Middle Bakken is present at approximately 8,600 feet sub-sea in the red square, which is the proposed spacing unit, and then the Matthew 1-20 well is highlighted in the southwest corner of the proposed spacing unit. That's the type log that is then presented in G2. And the intended target for this line well spacing unit is the Middle Bakken member. And that's all for CLF.
All right. Let's go to then E1. Tell us what E1 is.
E1 just shows our intent for the spacing unit, line well spacing unit, to drill one Bakken well.
And E2?
E2 shows the formations that are drilled in the wells around, and then our intended well, which is shadows the line, goes right down the line of the center of the spacing unit,
And
it's right in the center. It's right in the center of the two 500-foot setbacks.
okay. And your intent is, or you have a proposal that's probably been granted at this point. Maybe you can describe for us. There's also a 3-mile lateral that you're proposing in this area. Can you tell us, will that be drilled in conjunction with your section line well, or will that be drilled earlier or later? Help us understand that.
Yes, if you look on that exhibit, there's one east-west horizontal or well going east-west along the section line of 20 and 19. That well in dashed blue, plus the long well that goes from 20 all the way up into 8. Those are the two additional wells that will be drilled at the same time as this line well from the same pad in the southeast corner of section 20.
And spacing orders have already been obtained for those wells, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go on to the next exhibit then. John, E3, tell us what E3 is.
E3 just shows that essentially the cross-section in yellow from the previous exhibit, showing the relative position of this well, this proposed Middle Bakken line well, in relation to the other drilled wells in the spacing unit.
And then,
And
I'm sorry.
Middle Bakken to Middle Bakken, we're proposing this well would put us at about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. Some of those are drilled on diagonal, so it's a little bit variable as to the distance between Middle Bakken wells, but it's approximately 1,000 to 1,500 feet for overall spacing between Middle Bakken wells.
Okay. And then E4.
E4 shows our planned wellbore diagram showing a cemented completion with plug and perf stages of approximately 40 to 50 plug and perf stages for the 10,000 foot lateral that we're proposing.
And E5.
E5's reservoir data for the area with for 2560 proposed 60,000 MBO oil in place. And E6 shows our economics for the project, which is just one Middle Bakken well. So the far left column is the same as far right. Investment of about $9.8 million for drilling the well, with a return on investment of 1,800% and undiscounted cash flow of $18 million.
Okay. And then your exhibit GC1, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
That's correct.
And in your opinion,
The
will
target is,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, target is to gather and processor in this area for us.
Okay.
And we've gotten with them on getting capacity to take these 3 wells.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
It will.
No further questions, Mr. Examiner. Offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none. Mr. Bender, anything further with case number 30395?
Nothing further in that matter.
All right, the record will be closed on case number 30395. Next case on the docket is case number 30396. This is an application of EOG Resources for an order for the Alger Bakken Pool in Mountrail County, North Dakota, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing by total not to exceed 3 wells on an existing 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 33 and 34 in Township 157 North, Range 92 West, and sections 5 and 6 in Township 156 North, Range 92 West, and also amending the field rules to authorize one of the wells to be drilled with the 7-inch intermediate casing set within 100 feet of the south line of section 5, but with the first perforation and production casing at 500 or greater from the south line, 500 feet or greater from the south line of section 5 as an exception to the provisions of any well location requirements and such other relief as is appropriate. Mr. Bender, you may proceed.
Thank you. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter, case 30396, on behalf of EOG Resources, Inc. We intend to call 2 witnesses in this matter, the same 2 witnesses as were called in case 30395.
All right, so Mr. Bender, you may proceed with calling your first witness.
Anna, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for 30396. Please turn to Exhibit L1 and tell us what L1 is.
L1 is a regional location map showing the field boundary for the Alger Bakken Pool within the state.
L2?
L2 is a zoomed-in picture of the Alger Bakken Pool. So it shows our proposed increased density unit outlined in blue with the 2 proposed wells that we would drill in there. And it also shows all the existing development in the area.
And L3?
L3 shows the spacing unit with the 2 proposed wells in there. The unit working interest is EOG Resources 84.73%, Hess Bakken 7.55%, Backman Funding 6.7%, MHM Resources 0.55%, and Lime Rock Resources at 0.46%. And I'd also like to note that our EOG's working interest in Section 8 to the south, which is where the exception location would encroach upon, EOG owns 100% working interest in that section.
No further questions of the land witness.
Any questions from staff? Hearing no questions, just the record will reflect that Ms. Morgan and Mr. Schmidt were previously sworn in case number 30395. Mr. Bender, you may proceed with your next witness.
Thank you. John, let's turn to Exhibit E1. Can you tell us what E1 is?
E1 just shows that we're proposing, there's one existing Bakken well in this DSU, and we're proposing 2 additional ID wells for a total of 3 Bakken wells. No Three Forks wells at this time.
And E2?
E2 shows an outline of the DSU, the well path of the 2 Bakken wells that we are proposing in relation to the well that was drilled in the center, or the initial well in the DSU in the center, and then the proposed wells are in red dash, and then a cross-section line in yellow, which will be highlighted in the next exhibit. And our service location, if you'll note, is in Section 8. That's going to facilitate the drilling of 4 wells from that pad. That pad location is significant as it pertains to why we're asking for the exception location.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit then, E3.
E3 just shows that cross-section in yellow from the previous exhibit, showing the position of the existing wells and the two proposed wells in red dash in relation to those existing wells and other proposed wells that would be germane to offsetting spacing units.
Okay, and then E4.
With the middle,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would say with a proposed interwell distance between middle Bakken wells, a final interwell distance between Bakken wells on final development of 900 to 1,000 feet, 1,050.
Okay.
E4
Yep.
is the wellbore diagram showing a plug-and-perf method. We expect for 14,000-foot laterals to have about 60 to 80 plug-and-perf stages in this area for a Bakken well.
Okay, and then E5.
And then E5 shows the reservoir data for the area, takes us down to total oil in place for this 2560 of about 64 million barrels. And then that reservoir data goes into our economics, which are E6. And we're showing an investment for a 14,000-foot well of $13.8 million. Two wells is just shy of 28 million. Turn on investment 2.2, and undiscounted cash flow for the project at two wells of $34 million.
Okay, and then
And a tax of 6.1 million.
all right, E7.
E7 relates to the exception location that we're asking for. The service location, it obviously is in a farmed field. This is an area where we have lots of little kettle lakes and wetlands. So we put this pad location where we could get away from those wetlands and be able to drill all 4 wells for that we plan to drill off this pad, 2 going to the north that are part of this spacing unit, and 2 to the south that are part of another spacing unit, to consolidate operations on a smaller footprint. There's also happens to be a U.S. Department of Defense no occupancy area going right through there, and so that limited our ability to optimally place this pad. In all reality, if that no surface occupancy area wasn't there, we would have placed it right up against the section line, and we probably would not have had to ask for the exception location for this.
Okay, let's go to E8.
E8 then shows a zoom-in drawing of our well plan. In the zoom-in there, it shows that we're going to get 7-inch intermediate over the section line. It's going to be crossing the section line by about 12 feet, almost 13 feet. And then we would cross the setback, the 500-foot setback line at 11,253 feet, and we're proposing that would be where our first perf could possibly be from. So we're just going to have because we're proposing a cemented liner, that section of the lateral that's in the setback, the 500-foot setback, would not be perforated or completed, therefore maintaining the integrity of that segment to protect relative rights.
All right, and then Exhibit GC1, is that a gas capture affidavit that is typically required in these sorts of applications?
It is.
And in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
I believe so.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Examiner. We'd offer each one of the exhibits that were identified by the two witnesses.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
First question, John, is why 12 feet?
That's just where our, that's where our well planner got, just to get it just over the line, so we would have casing set over the line, over the section line. That was the best we could do, with our, curve, angle, et cetera.
So you,
Just how he planned it.
so there's nothing magic about 12. You could set it 100 feet across the line, couldn't you?
We could, but it starts to elongate the curve, and I think we're building the curve. As we typically build the curve, it takes about 600 feet of lateral extension to build the curve, and that 600 feet got us just over the section line. So we wanted to have intermediate casing set over the section line, and then the liner, the cemented liner, going through the setback.
Just for sake of argument, I mean, you're at 90 degrees at that point. I mean, you could set the 7-inch to a legal location, couldn't you?
It would be another 1,000 feet of 7-inch, and drilling that bigger hole size sometimes, especially in the once you go through the Upper Bakken Shale, that Upper Bakken Shale doesn't stay open as nicely as we tend to encounter problems if we in times where we've encountered issues setting 7-inch intermediate, it's been the Upper Bakken Shale falling apart, and so leaving that Upper Bakken Shale exposed for additional time. We'd like to get through it, tip our nose into the Middle Bakken, set casing in the Middle Bakken, and run it. So drilling another 1,000 feet in the Middle Bakken, we think adds extra risk.
And based on your azimuth at this point, at this location, then you have a 500-foot setback?
That's correct. And that's to get by, we have to get by the surface or the vertical and curve of the drilled well, number 3 well, in that spacing unit that's just across, that is just across the inside the setback. So that's why we had to go azimuth-wise. We cut it as close as we could, but we couldn't get it to where it was going more north-south to have a 200-foot setback, or a 150-foot setback, I guess.
Does EOG plan on running a cement bond log in the 4.5-inch to show that it's cemented across the hard line?
We could do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, anything further on case number 30396?
Nothing further?
Lawrence, I did have a question. Notice-wise, did you notice this as an exception location to the owners in the section to the south?
We did Mr. Helms, and there should be in the record a list of all the owners who were provided notice. They were provided notice by being copied with the application.
Thank you.
Okay, we will close the record on case number 30396. Next case on the docket is case number 30398. On a motion of the commission to review the status of the leases in sections 30 and 31 within the 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 29, 30, 31, and 32 in Township 154 North, Range 96 West, in the Grinnell, Bakken Pool, and McKenzie and Williams counties in North Dakota, and the progress towards developing said sections 30 and 31 as a stand-up 1280 spacing unit and such other relief as is appropriate. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box
29,
1855.
30, 31, and 32 in Township 154 North.
So you guys need to turn off your computer.
In Williams County. 30 and
Somebody from Grayson Mill on the phone? Hello?
We're here.
Okay.
How long?
Yeah, there's a delay, so we're hearing what the examiner was just talking. So if you could turn the computer off, that'd be great.
Yep, got it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in case 30398 on behalf of Grayson Mill Operating LLC. Mr. Examiner, the next case on the docket, case 30399, is an application of Grayson Mill Operating. And the presentation we plan on making with our request in case 30399, I believe, will address all the issues that I think the commission wants to know about with respect to the docketing of case 30398. So we'd respectfully request that those two matters be combined and consolidated for purposes of hearing. We plan on calling 3 witnesses, and we'll have 1 set of exhibits, and we believe by combining those 2 matters, we can expedite the hearing process.
All right, I'll approve your request, and I'll just read case number 30399 into the record. This is an application of Grayson Mill Operating LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Grinnell, Bakken Pool, and Williams and McKenzie counties, North Dakota, to correct and establish a 1280 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 30 and 31 in Township 154 North, Range 96 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 12 horizontal wells on said proposed 1280 acre spacing unit and such further relief as appropriate. So case numbers 30398 and case 30399 are combined for the purposes of today's hearing. And Mr. Bender, you may proceed with your first witness.
Thank you. We plan on calling 3 witnesses. First, in the area of land, Ms. Amy Becker.
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Becker, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Amy, would you state your name for the record, please?
Amy Becker,
And Amy, by whom are you employed?
Grayson Mill Energy.
In what capacity?
I'm a senior landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
For the further testimony, this witness that of an expert.
Your motion is approved.
Okay. Amy, let's turn to the packet of exhibits which have been marked. Well, they have a cover page for case 30398 and 30399. Let's skip the cover page and go to exhibit L1. Tell me what exhibit L1 is.
This is a map and field depiction showing you the proposed 1280 acre spacing unit, which is comprised of sections 30 and 31 in Township 154 North, Range 96 West.
And L2, can you tell me what exhibit L2 is?
L2 shows Grayson Mill's interest, and in this proposed 1280 acre spacing unit, we would have a working interest of 44%.
Okay, and L3.
L3 is just identifying the two federal tracks, which Grayson Mill was successful in bidding, and they're both located in section 31, which is the southern section of our proposed 1280 acre spacing unit.
And these lands that you have shaded in green, they're federal minerals, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And they've been unleased for quite some time, is that correct?
Yes,
And Grayson Mill was just recently the successful bidder on those tracks, is that correct?
correct, with an effective date of August 1st.
Okay, and that allows Grayson Mill now to come in and propose some spacing and development in this 1280, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
No further questions of the land witness.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Okay. Catherine, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Catherine Henry?
All right, ma'am, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
Catherine, by whom are you employed?
Grayson Mill Energy,
In what capacity?
as a geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Your offer is approved.
Catherine, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit G1. Would you tell us what G1 is?
Yes. G1 is just our structure map of the Upper Bakken Shale with 25-foot contours. I've outlined our DSU in red, and then I've also highlighted our type well. It's the Gunslinger Federal 7-1-12 TFH.
Okay, and G2?
D2 is just highlighting that offset well log. The wells in question are targeting both the Middle Bakken and Three Forks Formation. The Middle Bakken is 45 feet thick, and the Three Forks first bench is 23 feet thick.
No further questions for the geologic witness.
Any questions from staff? Hearing none, or any additional question, or any questions? Hearing none, anything further on cases number 30398 and 30399, Mr. Bender?
Have another witness.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
Call your next witness.
Nikki, would you state your full name for the record?
Nikki Nichols?
All right, ma'am, could you raise your right hand, please, and do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
All right.
Nikki, by whom are you employed?
By Grayson Mill Energy,
In what capacity?
as a reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Offer is approved.
Nikki, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as Exhibit E1, and what I'd like you to do is identify E1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon that exhibit and how it's important to today's application.
Sure. E1 is our proposed directional well plot for the proposed 1280 spacing unit. Existing Middle Bakken wells are in solid blue lines, and existing Three Forks wells are solid orange. You can see our proposed Middle Bakken wells in dashed blue, and proposed Three Forks in dashed orange. You can see that this unit has no development within it right now, so it is a completely undrilled unit.
And is it a fair statement that 30 and 31 probably have not been developed, at least in the past, because there was federal acreage that was unleased?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. And as Amy has indicated, that's now leased. The lease went to your company, so you're proposing development in this area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go on then to the next exhibit, E2. Tell us what E2 is.
E2 is our typical wellbore schematic for a 10,000-foot lateral. We anticipate this would be a 3-string casing design well with roughly 60 plug-and-perf stage completion.
Okay, and then E3?
E3, we are showing reservoir characteristics for both the Middle Bakken and the Three Forks reservoirs. The table at the top is for the Middle Bakken. We have 45 feet of net pay, 6.3% porosity, and 40% water saturation. The bottom table showing same characteristics for the Three Forks. The net pay is 23 feet, porosity 6.7%, and water saturation 38%.
All right, and E4?
E4 is showing our type curve basis and economics for our Middle Bakken wells. Our anticipated initial production rate is 1,100 barrels of oil per day with the oil EUR of 458,000 barrels and 1.5 BCF of gas for a combined EUR of 878,000 barrels of oil equivalent. The economics in the table below are for single well shown at $70 oil price and $3.25 gas. Gross capex of $8.175 million. This is assuming 100% working interest with a PV10 of just under 3.9 million.
All right, and then E5?
E5 is similar to the previous exhibit, but now showing the Three Forks Reservoir. We are anticipating an initial rate of 900 barrels of oil per day. Oil EUR 415,000 barrels, 1.2 BCF of gas for a combined EUR of 736,000 BOE. Similar economic table shown at $70 and $3.25 gas. CapEx 8.175 million. PV10 of that well just under $2.7 million.
And then exhibit GM1 is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And then following the gas capture affidavit as an addendum, are there letters of support for the request of Grayson Mill in this matter?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, I don't have any further questions. We would offer the exhibits and the addendum.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Nikki, on your exhibit E1.
Yes.
You're gonna drill the wells from a pad on the east side and a pad on the west side?
That's correct.
And one of the wells on the west side is gonna be a lease line well?
There will be 2 lease line wells on the west side. I believe those are included in a different spacing unit that I believe is already spaced.
So is the furthest west Middle Bakken dotted line, is that a lease line well or a unit well?
It should be a lease line well.
And then the dashed yellow lines on either side of that, those are wells?
Yes, the furthest west yellow dash is also a lease line well, and then the one just to the east of that middle Bakken lease line well we were just discussing would be in this 1280 spacing unit.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, anything further on these cases, Mr. Bender?
Nothing further.
All right, we'll close the record in case number 30398 and 30399. Next on the docket is case number 30303. This is a continued application of Enerplus Resources USA Corporation for an order for the Lone Butte Bakken Pool and/or Little Knife Bakken Pool in Dunn County, North Dakota, as follows. 1, create and establish an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit in sections 28 and 33 in Township 147 North, Range 97 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 9 horizontal wells on said proposed overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit, and 2, create and establish 2 overlapping 2560-acre spacing units comprised of sections 28, 29, 32, and 33 in Township 147 North, Range 97 West, and sections 1, 2, 11, and 12 in Township 145 North, Range 97 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing spacing units of each proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit and such further relief as appropriate. Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in case 30303 on behalf of Enerplus Resources USA Corp. We intend to call 3 witnesses in this matter, and we have witnesses at different locations, so I need a moment to dial in so that they can dial into the same number.
All right. Yeah, we'll go off the record for 5 minutes while you connect to your witnesses.
Thank you.
Have any changes to these? Do you need to sign it?
We're on the record for case number 30303, and Mr. Bender, you indicated after I read the description of the case that you have 3 witnesses.
That's correct.
You may proceed with your first witness.
Thank you. Vince, would you state your full name for the record? Vince, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, could you state your
Can you
full
hear
name?
me?
I can now. Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Yes, Vincent Bernal.
All right, sir, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Vince, by whom are you employed?
Enterplus Resources USA Corporation,
In what capacity?
Landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes,
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Your offer is approved.
Vince, let's turn to the packet of exhibits. I assume you have a packet in front of you. And let's skip the cover page and let's go to what's been previously marked as L1. You want to tell me what L1 is?
Yes, Exhibit L1 is the area reference map. Here we've got the Lone Butte field and the Little Knife field outlined in solid green with the proposed vertical 1280 spacing unit for the Edward unit, as well as the proposed 2560 overlapping drilling and spacing unit for the western lease line well. To the south, we also have another 2560 acre overlapping spacing unit for the Danielle western lease line well as well.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit L2A. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, this is the operation overview map, zooming in here on Township 147 North, Range 97 West, Sections 28 and 33, with the operational overview for the planned well locations, Middle Bakken and Three Forks in the Edward 1280 DSU.
Okay, and then let's go to L3A.
L3A is the ownership map reflecting the ownership in gray there for Section 28, Enterplus estimated working interest around 97%, Section 33, Sinclair Oil and Gas 50% with the remainder other operators, and the proposed 1,200 acre drilling and spacing unit for Section 28 and 33, Enterplus estimated working interest 48%, Sinclair 25% with the remainder 26.3 other operators.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit L2B.
Okay. Exhibit L2B, another operational overview map. This one really just highlights the 2H Western lease line well in the LK Edward unit, bringing in sections 29 and 32 for Sinclair Oil and Gas Harris Federal operated unit for a proposed overlapping 2560 acre unit to include sections 28, 29, 32, and 33. The red outline there reflecting the Enterplus working interest, about 24%, with Sinclair at 36.8, and the remaining working interest 38.9.
Okay, and then let's go to the next exhibit, L3B.
Okay. L3B, further description here of the proposed 2560 acre unit, the Edward 2H Western lease line, sections 28 and 33 again, the underlying unit for Enterplus's Edward proposed 1280, along with to the west there sections 29 and 32, Sinclair operated unit. The underlying units in light gray there, 28 and 33 estimate for Enterplus 48.6 with Sinclair at 25%, and then 29 and 32 to the west, Sinclair 48.5% with the remainder other operators.
All right, and then L2C.
Okay, down to L2C. Now we're moving to the Enerplus operated Danielle proposed western lease line well 2H there. The red outline with the proposed 2560 acre overlapping spacing unit. We've got the development plan for the Bakken and Three Forks wells in the Danielle unit, along with the western lease line for the 2H Danielle.
And then finally L3C.
And L3C is the ownership map. Here we'll remove the operations and we'll just show the proposed 2,560 acre overlapping spacing unit consisting of sections 1, 2, 11, and 12. Both operated vertical 1280 underlying units from Enerplus. Section 1 and 12 there in the gray. Enerplus 65.5% roughly working interest, and sections 2 and 11, Enerplus estimate 79.5. So in the overlapping drilling and spacing units 1, 2, 11, and 12, Enerplus estimate 72.5% with other operators 27.5.
And Vince, in those situations where Enerplus has less than a majority interest, will Enerplus have discussions with the other working interest owners to determine who should be the operator?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Edwards unit, this came about through discussion with Sinclair directly, and we don't have a letter of support, but if we do need that, that is an option.
No further questions of the land witness.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Jeff, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Jeffrey Kiernan.
All right, sir, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jeff, by whom are you employed?
Enerplus USA.
In what capacity?
Senior geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Your offer is approved.
Jeff, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been marked as Exhibit G1A. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, Exhibit G1 is a set of structure contour maps, the first of which is on the, well, they're all on the Upper Bakken Shale, the first of which is at a contour interval of 20 feet and shows a more regional view of central Little Knife Field and the adjacent parts of the other field, with Little Knife Anticline highlighted blue and showing the position of the two areas in question, the three DSUs in question, sitting on the northeastern flank of the Little Knife Anticline. Also, this map shows the position of a reference well that will be referenced in Exhibit G2.
Okay, let's go to G1B first.
G1B is just a close-up of the northern area there, highlighting specifically the Edwards unit, which is the one we're proposing to expand from being a 640 where that short lateral was drilled black to the 1280 where the new laterals will be drilled.
Okay, and then G1C.
G1C is a similar identical map, really, just with a box showing the overlapping 2560 with Sinclair's adjacent unit and the position of the western lease line wall.
Okay. I didn't pick up on this earlier, Jeff, I apologize, but there looks to me like there's two G1Cs. The first one...
Yes. Yeah, that's a typo on my part. That should be a G1D. Pardon me.
So the exhibit you just discussed, that's G1B?
I think that would the exhibit I just discussed would be C.
Okay.
And the final one would be should be labeled G1D.
Okay, great. All right, let's go to G1D, and hopefully everybody's following along here, so tell us what that exhibit is.
Yeah, again, it is just a close-up on that same structure contour map with contours of 10 feet, highlighting the Linden Danielle units down in Township 143, and showing the position of the western lease line to be drilled north from the Danielle pad.
All right. Now let's go to G2. Tell us what that is.
Exhibit G2 is a reference log just showing the tops that is quite well representative for both applications, or both parts of the application, both regions. This is not an area where we have a lot of vertical control, so a single well is about all we can offer for a good reference log. It shows the Middle Bakken target and the Three Forks First Bench target, and associated surrounding tops.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none, Mr. Bender, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. Mandy, are you there?
I am.
Can you state your full name for the record, please?
My name is Amanda Ingebrigtsen.
All right, could you raise your right hand, please? And do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Mandy, would you tell us by whom you are employed?
I am employed by Enterprise Resources USA Corporation.
In what capacity?
I am a reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I have.
For the further testimony of this witness, that of an expert.
Your offer is approved.
Mandy, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been marked as E1. Can you briefly discuss what's contained on E1?
Yes. E1 is a generic wellbore schematic. It depicts a 7-inch case cemented vertical section of a wellbore and a 4.5-inch frac string that will be cemented in place. We do plan to plug and perf stimulate our wells. In this hearing, we are going for 2-mile laterals, and we plan to complete these with between 30 and 40 frac stages.
Okay, and exhibit RE1A.
Exhibit RE1A is the reservoir parameters for the Bakken section in our 1280 overlapping spacing unit request, with a potential thickness of the Bakken of 34 feet and a porosity of 51%, with a formation volume factor of 1.2. We are estimating there are approximately 10 million barrels of stock tank oil in place, and we expect to receive a recovery per well of around 500 MBO.
Okay, and RE1B.
RE1B is referencing the same 1280 spacing unit. However, this is reservoir parameters for the Three Forks formation. The thickness of the Three Forks in this area is approximately 60 feet with a porosity of 6.4%. We are estimating an approximate 10.8 million stock tank oil barrels in place and a potential recovery of Three Forks wells around 430 MBO.
Right, now let's go to RE1C.
RE1C references the same Bakken reservoir parameters that we discussed in RE1A. However, this is going to be applicable for the 2560 acre spacing unit request. In this 2560 acre request, we estimate there to be approximately 20 million barrels of oil in place, and the recovery will stay the same for our Bakken wells at around 500 MBO per well.
All right, and then RE1D.
RE1D references the lease line well in the 2560 spacing unit in section, let's see here, 14597, sections 1 to 11 and 12 further south. In that area of Little Knife, we estimate our thickness of the Bakken reservoir to be 34 feet, a porosity of 5.3%. A total stock tank oil barrels in place in that 2560 acre proposed unit would be around 22 million barrels, and an estimated recovery per Bakken well at 480 MBO.
All right, then let's go to RE2A.
The documents for RE2 all are encompassing the economic parameters of the well. 2A would be our economics for a Bakken recovery. These will run at a flat $60 per barrel, $3.60 per MCF. Our capital cost is estimated to be $7.8 million, and with that recovery of 510,000 barrels from the well, we estimate a rate of return of 65% and a payout of 1.3 years.
Okay, then let's go to RE2B.
RE2B references that same 1280 unit that we discussed first. However, this is the Three Forks economics. Again, ran at the same price deck of $60 per barrel, $3.60 per MCF. Same capital commitment of $7.8 million, but at a recovery of 430,000 barrels. We would have a rate of return of 37% and a before-tax payout of 1.8.
And then RE2C.
RE2C, again, references our Bakken economic summary for that 2560 overlapping spacing unit. Same parameters of $60 per barrel, 3.6 per MCF, 7.8 for our capital commitment, and that recovery of 510,000 barrels of oil with a rate of return of 65% and a payout of 1.3 years.
And then Exhibit RE2D.
RE2D are the Bakken economics for the further south DSU, the 2560. In that case, we will stay consistent with the 7.8 initial capital cost run on a $60 per barrel oil price and a $3.60 gas price. The recovery here we assume to be slightly lower, so at 480,000 barrels, we estimate a rate of return of 65% and a payout of 1.6 years.
And then I'm trying to find a exhibit number on the gas capture affidavit. Is there one on there? I don't see it. Maybe we can just call that.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I apologize because I am looking at our gas capture affidavit and I do not see a title on there putting it as Exhibit GC1 on the cover page. But that is our gas capture affidavit signed by our midstream representative.
And is this a document that the commission typically requires, one of the documents they typically require in these sorts of hearings?
It is.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Mr. Examiner. We would offer each one of the exhibits that were identified by the three witnesses.
Exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff? All right, hearing none. Anything else, Mr. Bender, in case number 30303?
Nothing further.
Okay, we'll close the record for that case. Last case on the commission's hearing docket is case number 30401. This This is an application of Dakota Energy LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Thompson Lake Bakken Pool in Burke County to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit for sections 6, 7, and 18 in Township 159 North, Range 90 West, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and 2 for such other relief as appropriate. Mr. Kite?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Ben Kipe, Pierce Derrick Law Firm, P.O. Box 400, Bismarck, appearing on behalf in this matter of Dakota Energy LLC. We'll have 2 witnesses, both are present. Mr. Preston Page will be offering land testimony, and Mr. Jeff Jennings will testify as to geology, engineering, and economics.
All right, you may call your first witness.
First witness will be Preston Page on land. Preston, please state your name, spell your last name, and state your work address.
Preston Page with Dakota Energy, Page, P-A-G-E. Our address is 3255 Greensboro Drive, Suite 201, Bismarck, North Dakota.
And what's your, in what capacity do you work at Dakota Energy?
1 second, Mr. Kite. Mr. Page, I just need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
All right, you may proceed.
Okay, back to my questioning. What capacity do you serve in at Dakota Energy?
I'm the founder and owner.
Okay, and what sort of activities does Dakota Energy involved in?
We're active in oil and gas leasing throughout the Bakken, minerals and royalties, lease development. We've worked on operations. We're with operations before.
Okay. And have you testified before the commission previously on land matters?
I have.
And was it accepted as that of an expert when you testified previously?
It was.
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness as that of an expert in the area of land.
Your offer is approved.
Okay, let's go to the exhibits, Preston. You prepared these or prepared under your supervision, these exhibits?
Yep, they have been prepared under my supervision.
Okay. Let's go to Land 1. Describe what's included there, please.
Land 1 is a map of our proposed 1,920 acre spacing unit. It's in the Thompson Lake Field, Township 159 North, Range 90 West, Section 6, 7, and 18, Burke County. As you can see, in Section 6, 7, and 18 is our proposed 1920 acre spacing unit. And I'll note in Section 18, the Kalberg 1H well has been plugged and abandoned. So that well is no longer active.
Okay. Exhibit Land 2.
Land 2 is the current spacing across this acreage. Section 6 and 7 is spaced as a 1,280 acre spacing unit. Section 18 is a 640 acre spacing unit.
Exhibit Land 3.
Land 3 is the current working interest that Dakota Energy owns. Out of an 1,879 acre unit, Dakota Energy has 1,534 acres with a working interest of 81.6%.
Okay. Land 4.
Land 4 is a well locator map of 4 wells spaced approximately 1,000 feet, spacing across Section 6, 7, and 18.
And do you want to provide for the staff where there's potentially the location for a pad for this development?
Currently, we're looking at 2 different pad locations, either in the northeast of 6 or the southeast of Section 18.
And Exhibit Land 5, if you could describe that, please.
Land 5, with the permission of Steel Reef Gas Gathering, is a map of gas gathering through the area along the west border of section 6, 7, and 18. Is a current gas pipeline that Steel Reef has stated has a capacity to take what a development would look like on our acreage.
And then finally, Exhibit Land 6, is this the required commission's gas capture policy affidavit executed by you?
It is.
I have no further questions.
Any questions from staff? All right, hearing no questions, you may call your next witness.
Call Jeff Jennings for geology, engineering, and economics.
All right, Mr. Jennings, could you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
All right.
Jeff, please state your name, spell your last name, and state your work address.
Name is Jeffrey Jennings. That's Jennings. I'm employed by Harris Brown and Clemmer, Inc., and have been retained by Dakota Energy to provide expert witness testimony.
Okay, have you testified previously before the commission?
Yes, I have.
And was your testimony accepted as that of an expert in geology and engineering?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I'd offer the further testimony of this witness to be accepted as that of an expert in both geology and engineering.
Your offer is approved.
And in preparation for this hearing, did you make a thorough study and review of the relevant geological matters concerning the application in case number 30401?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did you prepare or had prepared under your supervision the exhibits that we'll be going through?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and go through them, starting with what's labeled as GO1.
This exhibit, on the right side are two maps. The upper map is the Upper Bakken Shale Structure Map, and then the lower map is the Middle Bakken Gross Isopack. Also shown on this map is cross-section AA prime, which extends from the northwest to the southeast, and that cross-section is then shown on the left two-thirds of this exhibit. One thing I'd like to point out is that the Middle Bakken, which is the target, thins going from the northwest to the southeast.
Okay. Move on to the next one, GO2.
Essentially, we have the same thing here, the same two maps, the Upper Bakken Structure Map and the Gross Isopack. In this case, we now show a cross-section BB prime, which generally extends from the west to the east. And again, you'll note the thinning of the Middle Bakken from the west to the east.
Next is GO3. Go through that, please.
Okay, this one has two things I'd like to point out. First off, on the right side is the structure map of the Upper Bakken Shale. Basically looking at a monocline that dips to the southwest approximately 80 feet per mile. And on the left side is the type log section, which is the Trapel 32-16H, which is identified on the structure map as that blue star. One thing I'd like to point out, I don't necessarily consider this to be an error, but the arrow coming down from that rig symbol, Dakota Energy is targeting the Middle Bakken, not the Upper Bakken. That was just to show that we were targeting the Bakken pool in general. So this is the type section log, and again, like I said, we're looking at the Trapel 32-16H, and Dakota Energy is going to be targeting the Middle Bakken with their 4 wells.
Okay, moving on to engineering. Likewise, you prepared these exhibits or had them done under your supervision?
That is correct.
Okay. You describe the information in what is labeled as ENG1.
Okay, this is a calculation of the oil in place. The lithology is generally described as a dolomitic siltstone. We're looking at a spacing unit, of course, of 1,920 acres, and using a 1,000 square feet per stock tank barrel for the gas-oil ratio, an average thickness of 35 feet in the Middle Bakken, and then an average porosity of 8.5% with a water saturation of 55%. The original oil in place calculates out to a little over 13 million barrels, and each well is estimated to recover about 586,000 plus barrels of oil per well, using an estimated recovery factor of 4.5%.
And ENG 2 next.
Okay, ENG 2, this is a schematic of what is planned for the wells to be drilled. Essentially, we drill an 8 3/4 inch hole down to a kickoff of 8,000 feet TVD. Then we turn the corner and go horizontal down to 8,600 feet, which point we run a 7-inch production casing and cement it to the cemented end. And then a 6-inch hole is drilled for the lateral out to a total lateral length of about 15,500 feet. Then a 4.5-inch liner is hung and cemented in. And the plan is to do a 50-stage frac, and of course use a 4.5-inch frac string to protect the uphole formations.
Okay. And lastly, economics exhibit labeled Econ 1, if you could go through the information in there.
This is the economics of what we consider to be hopefully will be the well production that we'll be getting. Now, the initial production rate is 800 barrels oil per day. That's an average, the first 30-day average. Estimated recovery is 581,000 barrels with a well cost of $9.8 million. Lease operating expense of $8,000 per month and an additional operating expense of $2 per barrel of oil and another $2 per barrel of water. Given a estimated royalty burden, or a royalty burden averaging 20%, oil price of $75, gas price of $2, we end up with a payout of 2.38 years, internal rate of return of 64%, and most importantly, the PV10 is $7.2 million per well.
Okay, and in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes, it certainly will.
I have no further questions, Mr. Examiner, and offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are received and admitted. Any questions from staff?
Jeff or Preston, does Dakota Energy operate or any wells in North Dakota right now?
Dakota Energy does not.
Has Dakota Energy drilled any wells in North Dakota?
Dakota Energy has not.
So out of curiosity, why are you starting with a 3-mile horizontal lateral rather than a 2-mile, which is, I don't know if it's more common, but there's been a lot of those drilled.
Certainly, we feel that the way the acreage is lined up, the economics with an extra 5,000-foot lateral is the most economic way to develop section 6, 7, and 18. Dakota Energy does not intend to drill the well itself.
So do you have a rig under contract?
We do not.
When do you plan on developing this acreage?
We're working with an operating partner to drill this potential acreage. Part of it is a contingent on being able to drill on a 3-mile lateral in the area. We think the EUR per lateral foot is compelling with the 1 and 2 mile laterals, but still uneconomic today. We think it'd be more economic to drill with 3 miles, and especially now that Section 18 well was abandoned, leases expired, we were able to acquire the leases.
So what time frame are you estimating?
If most ideally, if you can get a rig through the winter and you're completing a well, June 2024, July 2024 would be the most ideal drilling and completion time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, what is the ideal interwell distance in this area, in your opinion? And how did you arrive at that?
Well, I didn't develop the interwell distance myself, although I reviewed it, and we're looking at about 1,000 feet. And I think for starting out here, I think 1,000 feet is a conservative way to approach this. I think down the road, we could easily add, depending on how these first 4 wells turn out, add some additional wells to it. But I think for right now, I think that's a conservative approach to use 1,000-foot interwell distance.
Great, thanks.
Any additional questions? All right, hearing none, anything further on case number 30401, council?
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, well, that is the last case on the commission's hearing docket for today. With that, we will close the record.